There comes a moment in life when you realize that always being available for others has turned you into a stranger to yourself. At first, you don't notice it. It feels noble to say yes, to respond instantly, to be the one people can rely on. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something inside you begins to fade. Your time is no longer your own. Your energy is drained before the day even begins, and the people you try so hard to be there for somehow offer you less and less in return. Carl Jung often warned that the greatest tragedies of the human soul do not happen loudly. They happen in silence, through small acts of self-abandonment repeated every single day. When you give too much of yourself, when you respond to every call, every message, every expectation, you begin to fragment. You lose your boundaries, your sense of direction, your inner authority. You start living according to someone else's rhythm, and you forget the sound of your own. What people rarely understand is that constant availability is not kindness. It is a slow form of self-erasure. And as Jung teaches, the more disconnected you become from your true self, the more life starts to feel heavy, chaotic, and meaningless. But everything changes the moment you stop giving unlimited access to your time, your energy, and your mind. The world shifts. People treat you differently. You begin to feel a strength you didn't know you had. For the first time, you step into a life where your presence has weight, where your absence has value, and where your time finally belongs to you again. This is the transformation we are going to explore. There is a hidden psychology behind being too available, a pattern that quietly shapes how people see you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. Most individuals who constantly make themselves accessible do not do it out of weakness. They do it out of fear. The fear of disappointing someone, the fear of losing a relationship, the fear of being forgotten, or the fear of being perceived as selfish. And beneath all of these fears lies something Jung understood deeply: the desperate need to be accepted. When you are always available, you are not simply giving your time. You are giving away your sense of worth. You are unconsciously telling the world, "My life is not as important as yours. My boundaries do not matter. My needs can wait." And people believe you. Humans naturally value what is scarce, and they subconsciously devalue what is always present. So when you train others to expect immediate access to you, they stop seeing you as a person and begin seeing you as a resource, something they can use whenever they need comfort, attention, or help. Jung believed that one of the most dangerous forms of self-betrayal is the willingness to shrink ourselves to fit into the expectations of others. When you overextend yourself, you disconnect from your inner voice. You silence the part of you that wants rest, reflection, solitude, and self-respect. You live reactively instead of intentionally, pulled in every direction except the one that leads back to your true self. And here is the paradox. The more available you become, the more invisible you feel. Your kindness becomes expected. Your presence becomes ordinary. Your efforts go unnoticed. This is not because people are inherently cruel, but because you have taught them that you will always be there, no matter the cost to yourself. Jung would say that this is the moment the shadow begins to take shape. Resentment grows quietly. Frustration builds. You feel used but cannot explain why. You feel tired but cannot find the courage to step back. You want freedom, yet you fear what will happen if you claim it. This is how self-abandonment becomes a habit, a lifestyle, and eventually a prison. But all prisons have a door, even if you haven't tried to open it yet. Respect is not something you demand. It is something you communicate through the way you live. And one of the strongest signals you can send to the world is how you treat your own time. When you allow everyone instant access to you, when you answer every message the moment it arrives, when you interrupt your own life to accommodate the needs of others, you unintentionally teach them a dangerous lesson: that your time holds no real value. People begin to see your attention as something cheap, something they can ask for at any moment without consequence. They don't do this out of malice. They simply respond to the reality you've created. If you give yourself away freely, the world naturally assumes there is nothing precious to protect. In psychology, this is known as the law of perceived value, the idea that humans instinctively attach more worth to what is limited, distant, or difficult to obtain. When you never protect your time, you flatten your own perceived value, and respect begins to erode. Carl Jung understood this phenomenon on a deeper level. He believed that when you fail to establish boundaries, you are not just betraying yourself. You are also confusing others. Without clear limits, people cannot understand where you stand, what you accept, or what you refuse. They do not know the weight of your presence because you have never shown them the weight of your absence. Slowly, the imbalance becomes obvious. People who once appreciated your support begin to take it for granted. Favors you once offered out of generosity become obligations in their eyes. Silence from you makes them impatient, not grateful. You stop being someone they value and start being someone they expect. And the more they expect, the less they respect. Meanwhile, internally, something begins to fracture. You feel frustrated when people demand too much from you, yet you are the one who taught them to do so. You feel invisible when your effort is overlooked, yet you are the one who made it look effortless. You want others to understand your limits, yet you have never clearly drawn them. This quiet conflict eats away at your confidence, your clarity, and your sense of identity. Respect fades long before relationships do. It disappears in the subtle moments, the unanswered thank you, the assumption that you will say yes, the lack of hesitation when someone interrupts your day. And each moment is a reminder that the world mirrors how you treat yourself. If you show that your time is disposable, others will handle it carelessly. There is a price you pay for being endlessly available, and it is not one you notice immediately. It begins quietly, in the background of your life, like a slow leak in a vessel you don't realize is emptying. At first, you tell yourself you're simply tired, that you just need rest or a day to recover. But the exhaustion you feel isn't physical, it's emotional, and it deepens every time you give pieces of yourself away without receiving anything that nourishes you in return. As you continue to stretch yourself thin, your sense of identity begins to blur. You start shaping your days around the desires, crises, and moods of others. You respond before thinking. You adapt before reflecting. You allow your boundaries to dissolve because it seems easier than risking conflict. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, you become less of who you are and more of what others expect you to be. Jung warned that this is one of the most dangerous forms of psychological drift, the slow fading of the self, replaced by a version built from the demands of the outside world. Eventually, this self-abandonment breeds something darker. It begins as a subtle unease, a heaviness in your chest when someone calls your name, a sigh you didn't mean to release when someone asks for one more favor. Then it evolves into frustration, and finally into resentment, not necessarily toward others, but toward yourself. You resent the way you've allowed your life to be consumed. You resent your inability to say no. You resent how far you've strayed from the person you once were. This resentment is the shadow side Jung spoke about, the part of you that grows stronger every time you silence your own needs. You learn to smile while feeling empty. You learn to help while feeling drained. You learn to give while secretly hoping someone will finally notice how much it costs you. But they rarely do, because you've trained them not to. At this stage, the emotional exhaustion becomes a cycle. You give too much, you feel depleted, you resent being depleted, and then you give again because you don't know how to break the pattern. The world assumes you're fine because you've never shown them otherwise. And beneath the surface, you continue to lose touch with your inner compass, the one that once guided your decisions, desires, and direction. But this quiet suffering is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that your mind and soul are begging for boundaries, for air, for space, for a return to yourself. It is the first signal that something must change, not outside you, but within you. The moment you recognize this cost, the transformation begins. There is a psychological truth that most people overlook. Distance is not the enemy of connection. It is what gives connection its meaning. When you step back from others, even briefly, you create space for reflection, for clarity, and for the restoration of your inner world. Carl Jung understood that withdrawal is not an act of selfishness, but a return to one's center, a necessary retreat into the self where identity, strength, and purpose are rebuilt. When you are constantly available, others never have the chance to miss you, to wonder about you, or to feel the weight of your presence through your absence. They become accustomed to your immediate responses, your instant support, your predictable availability. But the moment you create distance, even a small one, something shifts. People start to notice your silence. They start to realize your presence was not guaranteed. They begin to feel the value of what they once took for granted. But the real transformation does not come from how others respond. It comes from what happens inside you when you withdraw. In solitude, your mind becomes clearer. Your emotions settle. You reconnect with thoughts and desires that were drowned out by constant noise. You feel yourself returning to your natural rhythm, no longer living at the speed of other people's expectations. Jung believed that every person needs a psychological sanctuary, a place within themselves where they can observe their thoughts without interference. This sanctuary cannot exist when you are always accessible, always responding, always adjusting. Distance is what allows you to rediscover this inner space. It is in that quiet that you begin to remember what you want, what you believe, and who you are when no one else is pulling at your energy. And something remarkable happens when you cultivate this distance consistently. Your presence becomes more powerful. People listen more carefully when you speak. They respect your time because they know it is not infinite. They approach you with intention instead of expectation. Your boundaries become clearer, not because you announce them, but because you live them. Withdraw to restore. This is the principle Jung understood deeply. Step back not to punish others, but to nourish yourself. Create space not to push people away, but to pull your spirit back into alignment. Distance, when used with consciousness and purpose, does not weaken your relationships. It strengthens your identity. And from that place of strength, every relationship you choose becomes healthier, more balanced, and more authentic. Reclaiming your boundaries does not begin with dramatic speeches or confrontations. It begins with a subtle shift in how you move through the world, a quiet decision to stop giving automatic access to your time and attention. Selective availability is not about building walls. It is about opening your doors only when it aligns with your well-being. It is a form of self-respect that communicates more powerfully than any declaration ever could. When you start choosing when and how you show up, something profound happens. You begin to feel your own presence again. You stop being stretched across everyone else's needs and return to your own center. Your days feel different, slower, more intentional. You realize you don't need to respond immediately to every call. You recognize that not every request deserves your energy. You understand that your time is a resource, and resources must be managed, not surrendered. As your availability becomes more selective, your relationships transform. People who truly value you adapt effortlessly. They understand your pauses, your silence, your need for space. They learn to approach you with respect rather than entitlement. Others, the ones who only benefited from your constant accessibility, may resist at first. They may feel offended or confused, not because you changed, but because they lost access to someone they never appreciated properly. Jung would say that this is the moment when masks fall and real intentions reveal themselves. But the deepest transformation occurs within you. You begin to trust your intuition again. You recognize the difference between genuine connection and emotional dependence. You feel less drained, more focused, more grounded. You no longer fear disappointing others because you finally understand that betraying yourself is far more destructive. Each boundary you set becomes a declaration of self-worth, a reminder that your life is not defined by how much you give, but by how consciously you choose to give it. Selective availability becomes a practice of self-mastery. It strengthens your identity, sharpens your priorities, and brings back the natural authority that was lost when you tried to be everything for everyone. You are no longer a constant presence waiting to be summoned. You become someone whose presence carries weight because it is given with intention, not obligation. When you finally choose yourself first, the world does not fall apart the way you once feared. Instead, it rearranges itself around the new version of you, the one who values their own time, their own peace, and their own inner voice. The transformation is subtle at first. You begin to feel lighter, as if a weight you've been carrying for years suddenly loosens its grip. You breathe differently. You move differently. You think differently. It's as if your soul recognizes that you have returned home after being away for far too long. You notice that your energy no longer drains as easily. The exhaustion that once felt normal begins to fade. You wake with a clearer mind, and decisions that used to overwhelm you suddenly seem simple. This is what happens when your life is no longer dictated by the needs of others. Your thoughts are sharper because you're finally thinking for yourself. Your emotions are calmer because you're no longer stretched beyond your capacity. Your sense of direction becomes clearer because you are no longer living a life built from constant reaction. Relationships shift as well. The ones that were rooted in imbalance begin to fall away, not through conflict, but through clarity. When you stop giving unlimited access to your energy, people reveal who they truly are. Those who were only attached to your availability drift toward someone else who will give them what you no longer offer. Those who care about you remain, not because they need you, but because they value you. You begin to surround yourself with people who respect your boundaries, not those who benefit from your lack of them. And then comes the most powerful part of the transformation. You rediscover your inner authority. You stop apologizing for taking up space. You no longer fear disappointing others because you understand that pleasing everyone is impossible and losing yourself is too high a price to pay. You finally realize that you were never meant to be endlessly accessible. You were meant to be intentional, discerning, and aligned with your own purpose. Jung believed that choosing oneself is not an act of selfishness, but an act of psychological duty. You cannot become the person you are meant to be if you spend your life trying to meet the expectations of everyone around you. When you choose yourself first, you reclaim your time, your identity, and your freedom. And from that moment on, every decision you make carries the quiet strength of someone who knows their worth. This is the moment everything changes, not because the world suddenly becomes different, but because you finally do. When you stop chasing everyone, something remarkable happens. You stop running away from yourself. The silence you once feared becomes the space where you rediscover your strength. The distance you once avoided becomes the boundary that protects your peace. And the loneliness you once imagined never arrives, because you learn that solitude is not the absence of others, it is the presence of your true self. You begin to move through the world with a calm authority that doesn't need to justify itself. You no longer ask for permission to rest, to think, or to choose. You no longer apologize for having limits. You realize that the people who truly belong in your life will never require you to sacrifice your well-being to earn their affection. And those who disappear when you stop giving everything were never meant to stay. This is the quiet power that emerges when you finally return your time, your space, and your energy to yourself. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is not wrapped in defiance. It is simply the natural confidence of someone who knows who they are and refuses to abandon themselves again. You have stepped into a version of yourself that is stronger, clearer, more grounded. You have learned that your worth is not measured by how much you give, but by how deeply you honor the person you are becoming. This is the beginning of living with intention, not for others, but with others, and always from a place of inner strength. If this message resonated with you, take a moment before you leave. Ask yourself where in your life you have been too available and where your spirit has been asking you to step back. Reflection is the first step toward transformation. If you want more content that helps you understand your mind, strengthen your identity, and reclaim your inner authority, make sure to subscribe and stay connected. Your journey toward self-mastery doesn't have to be walked alone. Let's continue it together, one insight at a time.